Okay, I just muted all you guys. If you want to ask a question while we go through this, just come off mute. Feel free to interrupt. Make sure it's a good joke that you tell me. Anyway, I really appreciate you guys all being here. It's 4 o'clock my time in California, and you guys are all sitting in, man, every one of you guys are sitting in obviously a sunny situation. I'm in my office. It's dark here. Rain. We've had rain here for a number of days, but we'll have a sunny weekend before we get thunder and lightning here again on Monday. So I'm from New Zealand. I trained in Australia, lived in Chile. This is in the 80s. I came to California for the first time in 89. In 1990, I came to California full time, and I was the winemaker for a little winery called Simi. Simi at the time was owned by Louis Vuitton, LVMH, Moet Chandon, Veuve Clicquot, Pomeray, all that stuff. But in 92, I got a break, and they made me still winemaker for Louis Vuitton. So I went to Australia with Cape Mantel, Cloudy Bay in New Zealand, Rufino in Italy, Terrasses in Argentina, and Roses in Portugal. We were sold to Constellation. Constellation was a lot smaller back then. So I was the chief winemaker of a group called Icon Estates, which is Franciscan Estancia, Blackstone, Ravenswood. I left Simi in 03 and went to Ranello Domecq, the biggest company in the world at the time. Clos de Bois, William Hill, Lattispeak, Gary Farrell, Mum, Buena Vista, Campo Viejo, Marcos de Arenza, Isios, Tarsos. But anyway, there's 58 wineries in 7 countries. And then we got sold to Jim Beam. Oh, I'll tell you my French joke. Any French people on here? Good, because French, Portuguese, Australians, these are the people I normally offend. So anyway, they're selling they sold the company. They said, Nick, you got a choice, the French, Pernod Ricard, or Jim Beam, the Americans. So I said, all right, I'll go talk to the French, because I'd already worked for Louis Vuitton. I knew what the French were like. I walk in, there's 2 guys in suits. So I said, shit, man, who died? Nothing. So then I told my one French joke. You know how the Americans salute? You know how the English salute? You know how the French salute? You know how the Australians salute? Because of the flies. But there's a joke going around on Facebook right now. I don't know if you guys saw it. That said that England has now spent 1 week longer in lockdown than France was in the Second World War. Did you see that one? That was pretty funny. And they both clapped on Fridays. Anyway, we're getting off the subject. We're here to have fun. Susan wants to drink already, so go ahead, Susan. I sound funnier. All right, what I'm going to do is, so in 2008, I went out on my own. So I make wine in 6 countries. We own vineyards in 4 countries. And I'm going to talk about 4/6 wines tonight. We'll see how far through we get. As I said, please feel free to interrupt. I'm going to share my screen now. We're going to go through some videos and little photos of what I've been doing. And I'm going to shrink Susan so I don't have to look at her face telling me what to do as we go through this. So, oh, I can only see myself now. That's much better. So I just want to thank all guys for coming. So for those who are the 4-packers, we've got the Boulder Bank, the Singing Tree, the Fidelity Red, which is a red blend, Bordeaux blend. It's the only, we only make, the only blends we do are under Fidelity. And then Katherine Cabernet. And for those who ordered the 6-pack, they also have the Zinfandel and my little daughter Hilary as well. So where I'm from in New Zealand is right up here. I'm from Mangawhai, which is the top of New Zealand. We're going to talk about Boulder Bank first. And just so you know, I changed it up a bit on you, Susan. I know you're drinking Chardonnay. Auckland is the big city where I'm from, where I went to school. But where our vineyards are in Marlborough. Wellington is the capital. And this is Marlborough itself. There's 3 appellations and 2 river valleys. So the Wairau River, the Awatiri Valley, and then Ward, which is to the south. The Wairau River flows into Cloudy Bay. This is the Richmond Range. So there's 2 sets of soils in the Wairau. There's what we call the Rapara, and then the Brancott, which are the glacial soils. These are the Wither Hills. The glaciers came off the Wither Hills and formed these little river valleys. There's a picture of the vineyard taken from 300 million miles away. This is, these are the roads that run east-west. All the other little roads run north-south. So there's only 4 roads. This is the airport where we come into. Renwick and Blenheim is just up here, which is the capital. And this road here is called Jackson's Road. This is Cloudy Bay that you can see. Alan Scott, which is that little winery here. You drive up Jackson's Road. You hit Matua, which is famous for a wine called Paratai. You may or may not have seen Paratai. It's quite expensive wine to buy. As you come down Highway 62 here, you get to Stoneleigh, which is probably the #1 vineyard in Marlborough. And then we're right next door, that little white building there, that's us. Jump over here, this is the vineyard. This is that white building that you saw, which is the hotel. So our neighbors at Cloudy Bay, Alan Scott, Paratai, and Stoneleigh. This is what we call the Golden Mile. Everything down there is machine harvested because everything is ready to harvest within 3 or 4 days. And so we want to get everything in. So this is the way we receive the fruit. It goes into semi-trucks, and then we bring it straight over to the winery. So very limited skin contact.
Here we are at the Fitzroy vineyard, just driving down the road. This is the way we do it in New Zealand. We make our roads just wide enough for our rental cars to fit down. You can see we're not quite ready yet. A little bit of time to go. We've still got the waxy outside the Sauvignon Blanc. And so we're close to Verizon, but not yet. Anyway, another gorgeous day in Marlborough, driving down the roads. Fitzroy Vineyard, 2018.
Sorry, I just had to check something. Yeah, I love showing that vineyard because it's not every day that you can drive your rental car down the rows of grapes. In fact, when we planted vineyards for Montana, one of the big wineries down there, every 10th row we left it a little bit wider so the winemakers could drive down. So this is the 91 point Sauvignon Blanc, and I just want to open this in front of you guys because this wine is it's called Fitzroy, which is the name of my uncle. So it's single vineyard. So there's two things that are different about this wine. Number one, it's single vineyard. All the other Sauvignon Blancs that you drink at this price point are blends. And secondly, we don't sell it to the British because we all know what the British eat, man. They eat fish and chips and other boring stuff. We eat Mediterranean food in US, and we want to have wines that are not screaming acidity and grassy and asparagus-y. So we make this wine just for the US consumer. On the label, you'll see there's some flax. This is what the Maori used to wear. So we respect that, and the stones are from the vineyard. But this is what I always enjoy doing this, right? You do this, right? Listen. Oh, you hear that? That's a screw cap. That's a screw cap. And its size, it's a beautiful thing. We should all be drinking wines from a screw cap. And as soon as I open it, the whole room suddenly smells of Sauvignon Blanc, and I get all this ripe passion fruit, and it's just so floral and fragrant, and it's just like, damn it, I got to have a glass. And the other cool thing about it, and the one thing that I do with this particular wine with Boulder Bank is I really want to, I mean, no disrespect to Mary and team, but I can sell you guys one glass of wine. But can I sell you two? That's the tricky thing. So when you drink this wine, my mouth just goes, shit, am I hungry or am I thirsty? You know, do I want to go and eat something now? Which I do. And I'm very jealous, Mary. I saw that you've got a lot of food there. And, or am I thirsty? And those are the two things that are really, that's what wine is about. This is a living, breathing product. This is fruit. We don't want to be drinking alcohol and wood and, you know, all this other stuff that people talk about. I don't care. All I care about is, can I drink that second glass? You know. So anyway, I really believe you can do that with this wine, and we make it specifically, as I said, for the US palate. So let's double check, make sure it was good. Okay. Somebody wants to chat with me. Yeah, I can see you. All right, let's move on. So the second one we're going to talk about is the Chardonnay, and this is the Singing Tree Chardonnay. And this is a really unique wine. I could spend hours talking about this, but we're here to have fun today, so I'm not going to delay too much. But we make two wines. We made one called Singing Tree, which is our regular Russian River wine, and then we have a wine that's from Dutton. We're just going to be talking about the singing tree today. This is the center of the universe for everybody that cares. This is our small little town of Healdsburg, beautiful little place. I live in this valley here. This is Dry Creek. This is Alexander Valley. This is Chalk Hill. And this is Russian River. So Healdsburg is a fantastic little town. We have 4 appellations that meet right there. And our vineyards are to the south. We're in the coolest part. Well, the Dutton is in the coldest part of the Russian River called Green Valley, sub-region called Green Valley. But where we're talking about today is Singing Tree, which is right down here in the Sebastopol Hills. This is Sebastopol. This is the vineyard that we're talking about, where we get the grapes from. And this goes to Kokomo, which is the very famous winery here, only direct to consumer. This goes to Dan Goldfield from Dutton Goldfield, and this goes to Costa Brown. So pretty impressive neighborhood.
These are the singing trees at our house. They are full of small birds and they are incredibly loud.
So yeah, those birds squawk like crazy. And Susan's partly to blame for this label because she was the one that helped create it. But instead of calling it the squawking tree, we call it the singing tree. Sounds a little bit better. But the big deal for me on this is this wine that you're drinking. If you've moved on to the Chardonnay, I haven't finished my Sauvignon Blanc yet, but is the soil that it's on and the mass selection, which I'm going to talk about. I won't go into too much detail. And then I should have put on here the age of the vineyard. So we all talk about old vine Zinfandel, and sometimes we talk about old vine Cabernet, but this is old vine Chardonnay. So really unique vineyard. And then in the winery, I really want to accentuate calcium carbonate. In fact, those that were on the discussion this morning with my son, in fact, Susan was, we talk about in Burgundy having a lot of calcium carbonate, a lot of chalk. And so one of the things that I've always felt is that we should be making Chardonnay with more of that calcium carbonate, which gives you the gunflint mineral character, which I think you really get in that Chardonnay. So we ferment about the 2018, which is what you're drinking, is about 40% concrete, but the 2019 is about 50, and I think the 2020 I'm going to put in about 60% concrete. And so I'm going to gradually, I'm not going to go all the way, but I'm going to go a lot of the way. We limit the amount of malolactic we do. We only use native yeast, and the wine is all vegan. All right, looking at the 3 things that I mentioned that are really important. Firstly, the soil. So this soil is like a talcum powder. This is what we call the Goldridge sandy loam. And the big deal was in 1989, 1990, we discovered that the rootstock that we were using, you know, there's 2 parts to a plant. There's the rootstock and the sign. The sign, so when you go to a store and buy a plant, you'll notice there's a lump between where the 2 things meet. It's really important when you put a plant in the ground, you do not put this in the soil. You want to keep that above the soil. If you put it in the soil, this thing will start rooting, and that's not what you want. That is not what you paid for. Back in the 60s and 70s, which is when we started really getting into Chardonnay, we didn't have nurseries like you have nurseries today. We couldn't just go down to the store and buy, you know, an oak tree or an olive tree or whatever. We had to propagate it ourselves. We had the rootstock and we had the sign, and we had to graft it. If we wanted to have if we wanted to do that, we would have to graft it. So most people didn't do it. They just took a stick and put it in the ground, and we grew an olive tree. Well, then we realized we needed rootstocks because we had less water, or we had nematodes, or in this case, phylloxera. So the rootstock we were using at the time was not resistant to phylloxera, and so we had to change the rootstocks. This vineyard, though, you can see how old this Chardonnay is, was planted in the 70s, 1978. So this is before phylloxera. So this is an old vine Chardonnay. The advantage with an old vine Chardonnay is the vineyard is naturally balanced. And secondly, which is more esoteric, is that it's a mass selection. So this is an old field selection, mass selection. So you can see we got big berries and small berries in the same cluster. And this is what gives its uniqueness. So if anyone says to me, oh yeah, my Chardonnay smells of white peach, which is what 90% of the Chardonnays in California smell like. White peach to pit fruit, apple and pear. That is exactly what I'm not going to drink. When I drink Chardonnay, I want to drink wines that have more floral, again, a little bit more passion fruit and melon. And you only get that from these old mass selections, these old selections, because when these have a little bit of virus in them. So when we put these things on the new rootstocks, the virus went away because these are clones. The new grapes are clones. And those clones don't have the diversity of flavor that we used to have with these old mass and field selections. There's very few of these vineyards that still exist, and we're lucky to be able to do that. So to have a Russian River Chardonnay at this price point is pretty unheard of. And then secondly, to know that it comes from a really old vineyard like this. So the big thing about mass selections is they have better balance between flavor and tannin. The reason why we use clones these days, and you've heard about Dijon clones maybe. Some of you have heard of Dijon clones or UC Davis clones, Espiguet clones. They are grown for large yields and fast accumulators of sugar. They've got nothing to do with quality, but unfortunately that's what's been planted. So if we were to graph on here, this is new, Susan, you've never seen this. This is a graph of, if we put structure and texture, which are the other two words. So look at me. So this is how structural wine comes in your mouth. Okay, tight. The things that make a wine tight are total acidity, carbon dioxide, the temperature you serve the wine at, and wood. A textural wine is a wine that does this. Okay, comes in the mouth broad and finishes broad. Things that make a wine fat, pH, malolactic, alcohol, fruit, and sugar. So you got this battle going on between texture and structure, and that's where blending or winemaking comes in. The other terms we talk about, warm fruit is pineapple, and as we head to cool fruit, we get melon, stone fruit, pip fruit, citrus, and grassy as we get colder. Today, when you drink Chardonnay, when you drink 90% of the Chardonnays in California, they're all here. In fact, if you drink them from France as well, because they're the same clones. Same in New Zealand, same in Chile, same in Argentina. All the whole world is planted to clones. Singing Tree, though, has a different style. You're going to get more melon. You're not going to get the full pineapple. Some of the vines in the vineyard do have a pineapple-y taste, but most of them are in the melon end of the spectrum. So this is the style that you get. You get it way more diversity. By putting it in concrete, we have a little bit more structure than what you would typically get in a California Chardonnay as well. And then if I put the Dutton on here, it's going to be a little bit fatter because we put a bit more wood on that, and we run a little bit malolactic on it.
Picking Chardonnay out here in the Russian River today. The guys are sorting through it. Beautiful, beautiful old vineyard. We're just wrapping up here and should get this fruit into the vineyard at the winery in the next hour or so. It'll be fantastic. This is some of the best Chardonnay that we make, and you can see we've got big berries and small berries going in the same cluster. And this is what mass selection Chardonnay is all about. It's beautiful, beautiful fruit. Little melon and subtropical characters will come from this. Fantastic. No clones here, no clones.
Malolactic is a little bit complicated. I don't want to talk too much about that, but basically a lot of people ask me how much ml is in your wine. It really depends on if you're in a cool climate or a warm climate. If you're in a cool climate, you have a lot more malic acid. Malic acid is, like an apple, it's a harder acid. You add a bacteria, we go to lactic acid. That's the buttery character that you guys talk about. But if you're in a cool climate, you're going to have more malic. If you're a warm climate, you have less malic. So you have to sort of know, before you ask the question about how much ml is in your wine, you need to understand, are you in a cool climate or warm climate? When did you add the bacteria? Is the wine still on lees? What temperature did you ferment it at? All of these things are important in terms of trying to understand how much ml is in your wine. So really don't worry about it. Don't worry about malolactic fermentation. Just drink the wine. Do you like it or not? So this wine comes from a cool spot, as I said, and we run the malolactic. We allow the bacteria to go native until March, April, and then we finish the malolactic ferment and just go with what we've got. So that's how we end up with the balance that you see in this wine. This is the 2018 you're drinking. They described it as fresh and juicy with notes of melon, which was great, unsolicited. Toast, complex, charming, and amazing value, 91 points. So it's been really well received. So hope you guys enjoy that. There's two super bargains that I think that we have in our portfolio, maybe too cheap, and one of them, of course, was this Singing Tree Chardonnay. Let's talk about Fidelity. So this is the red blend. So Fidelity, we make two Fidelities, and they're both blends. We don't normally talk about blends, but Susan and cohorts obviously discussed wanting to do Fidelity today. So this wine is, it's a bit of a sad story, really. So I got a call in 2001, 2002, something like that. A friend of mine, Al Delormier, and his wife, Sally, had sold their winery to a guy, and that was well and good, but they'd written a contract for 3 years to sell the grapes, and they hadn't been paid. So I went over there, and the winemaker was a good friend of mine, and so I went over there and I tasted the wines, and so he had Cabernet Merlot, Cabernet Franc, and Petit Verdot, all from the same vineyard, all fermented separately, and the wines were fantastic. So I said, let's put all the 1999 together, the 2000 and 2001. So we made 3 wines, and I called up a buddy of mine who was a small independent retailer. You may have heard of the retail store, Sam's Club, Walmart, something like that. Anyway, we called it Fidelity. We launched it on Valentine's Day. We put a heart on the label. Everything went great for 2 years. He calls me back, Bob calls me back and says, dude, I can't sell the last 500 cases. I'm like, man, I'm still working for a corporation. I'm just doing this to help a guy out. So I called up my distributor and 3 distributors on the East Coast, and they all agreed to help me with the 500 cases. The next day, it got 92 points at Best Buy Wine Enthusiast, and Bob called me back up and said, dude, can I get my wine back? So today, there's a broken heart on the label. And this is a screw you to Sam's Club, Walmart, Costco, and everyone else is screwing up the industry. That's why we love small independent wineries. This wine is built for small independent retailers. This wine is built for small independent retailers. It's still called Fidelity, but it has the broken heart on the label. So anyway, that's the red blend that we're talking about. So today, even, it's still Cabernet and Merlot. Merlot, Cabernet make up about 85%. The rest is Cab Franc and Petit Verdot usually. But I, over this, probably starting in 2020, I'm going to change the Cab Franc to Malbec. So I'm a big fan of Malbec. I'm not such a big fan of Cab Franc, but we don't want to get into that today. As I say, it's the second best variety I've ever worked with in my life. And everyone goes, what's your favorite variety then? I go, anything but Cabernet Franc. Anyway, yeah.
Pardon me, is there a reason you just don't go ahead and call it a Meritage?
The rule for, if you want to join the Meritage Society, number one, it has to be your most expensive wine that you sell. And secondly, I don't want to pay the fee. I mean, because it's a quite expensive club to be a member of, and I'd rather pass that value on to you guys. But it is a Meritage, because it is 100% Bordeaux. The real question too, though, because it's a good question, a real good question is also, why don't you put the varieties on the front label? Well, unfortunately, we have 15 states that every time I change the percentage of the wine, of the varieties in the wine, I have to resubmit the label to those 15 states. It's crazy. So unfortunately, we put red wine. The thing though, the thing that disappoints me is there's no distinction. When you buy a wine that says red wine or red blend, you don't know what's in it. And most of the time, oh, I don't drink Syrah, I don't drink Merlot, I don't drink this, guess what? It's all in the red blends. What I'd like to see happen is have a definition for if a wine is 100% Bordeaux varietal or a blend of everything. And so I find I have a real hard time about it, but this is 100% Bordeaux varietal. There's no Syrah in it, there's no Zinfandel, there's no Petit, etc. So it is a bit of a tricky situation. So the only way I can really tell the story is by situations like this, and hopefully encourage you guys to give it a try. Hopefully that answered your question. So the other wine in the group is the Zinfandel. So this comes from a property we own. So the Alexander Valley looks like an upside down Y. So we start in the north at Cloverdale, Geyserville is in the middle, and the Russian River gets blocked by the Fitch Mountain. This is for the people that who ordered the 6-pack. So the ones that got the 4-pack don't have the Zin. But we make the two things that are key for me is the rootstock. So this rootstock is St. George, which is the oldest rootstock that all the Italians planted way back when. And this vineyard is planted on that. And it's also It was originally head pruned. So if you remember the bush vine situation, we used to grow a lot of grapes bush vine wise. Well, the person that I bought this vineyard off, they threw up 6 wires, and so they took the bush vine and they converted it into sort of a loose canopy. So it's a pretty old vineyard, but they threw on this trellis, which actually makes it pretty interesting. We can manipulate it a little bit more. But it is on the original St. George rootstock. We don't know the clone of Zinfandel. Sorry, we don't know the mass selection because it's an old vineyard. We don't know the mass selection that the Zinfandel is in. And on the same property, we also have Petite Syrah. So we blend in, I would say, I'm not ruling out of it, I can't remember, Susan will know, but we normally blend in 10% would be high for me to blend in Petite. But Petite gives the wine just a little bit of structure, because Zinfandel tends to be quite high in alcohol. So one of the things that I do is I pick it earlier than you typically get for Zinfandel. Because if you really want to enjoy 2 glasses of wine, try Zinfandel. It's hard to drink 2 glasses of Zinfandel typically without, I mean, I struggle with it. So I wanted to make a Zinfandel that I could have 2 glasses of. And so we make this, it's the only wine that we make over about 14.5 alcohol, but it's less than 15. But most Zins that you get are 16, 17, 18 alcohol. A lot of these are, I mean, well, you know what it's like. You drink a bottle of Zin and like, man, I got to go to bed. I'm feeling tired. Although some of you younger guys, maybe not. But I want to be able to have 2 glasses of Zinfandel. So we pick a little bit earlier. It's fresher red fruit. And for some reason, this has become a pretty successful little wine. So here's Geyserville. This is the vineyard. So downtown Geyserville. So this has all been incorporated now. This is housing. So we're the next vineyard. So they can't expand the city going north unless they buy us. But it's a really cool location. This is a little hotel here called the Hoffman House, but great old little vineyard. You can actually see here from the aerial some wheat vines here. That's really interesting in itself, because those wheat vines, back pre-Prohibition, there was a winery there. And one of the neighbors up here was telling me that as a kid, he used to run through the tunnels, really old guy, the guy's 92 or something. He used to run through the tunnels of the winery here. So I always wondered why these vines didn't grow, but apparently it's all filled in. They blew up the winery and sunk the caverns, and they brought in more dirt and filled it in. That's why the vines don't look as healthy there. This is the Russian River out here. The soils are not really influenced here, but the 100-year flood, which is the way we look at properties, comes right through here. That's why there's no houses close to the river from about here. So this vineyard sits above the river. Now they are changing the rules in California, brand new rules. So starting, I think in 2 weeks, I think, they're allowing all these small vineyards to pour wine on their own properties. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up, there's a little gap here. We don't have any vines. I'm going to put up a tent, and we're going to put our winery tasting room in this tent on this property. Who knows? Somebody may even show up. It's going to be way more fun. People are going to drink wine in the vineyard. I know we've had fires. I know we've had floods, and I know we've got the pandemic, but it's a beautiful place to come and visit, and we would certainly welcome you. And I'll give you my contacts at the end, that we would love to host you. Okay, so the Zinfandel is an old mass selection again. As I said, it's a really old vineyard. We pick it a little bit earlier, and we use super, super gentle extraction, because the problem with Zinfandel, it's really friable. The berries are big, and you can get a berry and squash it very easily, and all the skin breaks apart. And I don't like that, because it gives it some bitterness. So we use really gentle extraction. We are so soft, we barely pump it over or punch it down. And yeah, I'm pretty fussy about the way we process the Zin. And I think you see that in the wine for those that are drinking it tonight.
G'day, Nick Goldschmidt here, winemaker for Trig Point Zinfandel. I am squinting into the sun. Whoa, check that out. And I'm standing out here in Railyard Zinfandel land. Down the end there, we have 2 railway lines. And Railyard is also the name of a rugby stadium that was imploded in New Zealand a few years back. And it's quite fortuitous, because right now we've got the World Cup of Rugby going on. Anyway, let's check out some Zinfandel here. We come in here. This is probably One of the best sets I've ever seen for Zin. Big, even, not too much raisening, although the cluster next door has a bit of raisening. Hope you can see that. So we'll check out. Just put a couple of berries in my mouth. I just spat the pulp out. Now I'm chewing the skin. Lots of good tannin, lots of good flavor. And then spat again. You can see how purple it was, and that indicates to me that we're very close to harvest. In fact, we got this down to pick in about 5 days. Anyway, awesome. Trig Point Zinfandel out here in Railyard in the Alexander Valley. Sweet as!
Sorry, I don't know why I said Trig Point. It should be Fidelity. I apologize. So this wine just got 92 points in the Wine Spectator, and very supple, sleek, and really round, and just for those that are drinking it, I hope you enjoy it. So that was a 2018. I was standing in the harvest. That video that I took is the 2019, of course. All right, so as some of you know, I have a bunch of kids. Isn't it amazing when they shut the universities down, they all come home? So they just announced here in California they're shutting the state schools and the UC system. The University of California and the state system are both shutting down. And so we have 3 children that are in those schools. Catherine is not, but Chelsea is our oldest daughter. She's at school. She's doing a PhD. She's also a teacher, so she's going to be confined to home. Who knows? She may. Talk is that she's moving back in with us. We'll see. Catherine is a vet, and Hilary is. She graduated 8th grade this year, and so she's going to UC Davis. But unfortunately, she'll probably have to do her first semester here with us. So this is the upside down Y. So this is Fitch Mountain. See that blue dot there? That's where I'm sitting right now. That red dot is where I live. And so you can either go this way or this way, and they're both part of the Alexander Valley. This piece of the valley is interesting. We talked about the Fidelity vineyard, because this is all east facing. The sun comes in this direction. Yes, the sun comes up in the southern hemisphere at the same time as the northern hemisphere. Yes, the water does go down the toilet the other way. But yes, east is the same. It's amazing. Some people ask me, does the sun come up in the east down in the southern? Yes, in the southern hemisphere too. So we want to stay away from west facing, because when in the west facing slopes are super hot in the afternoon. So here, what we do is we look for little knolls, little bumps in the hills, and so that's where we work in the south. The soils are a little bit creamier here, a little deeper. Here they're a little bit more gravelly, because these are more glacial. Down here they're a little bit more volcanic. There's a picture of my kids taking the harvest of 2019. This is Chelsea, Hilary, and Katherine. And we make a number of Cabernets. So the ones that we're going to talk about today are the Katherine, which is over here from the Alexander Valley. We also make a lot of wines from Oakville as well. We will briefly touch on the Hilary, which is from Oakville. So this is a picture of the close-up view of the southern part of the Alexander Valley. This is a valley itself. There's a little valley in here. For those who are interested, the fires of 2019 came down here. And this barn that you can see on this picture here actually is gone. It burned. But this valley now is owned by 5 growers. It used to be owned by 1. And now we buy grapes from all 5. This is the Yoeman vineyard, which is our top vineyard from Alexander Valley. And just below that is the Katherine vineyard, which is why I have it pointed out here. So this vineyard we use for another project. The key elements for Katherine is that it's Piedmont, so it's a gentle slope facing east. It has lower yield. Again, we're talking about old vine. We destem it, and we do use native yeast, and we don't use any filtration or anything like that. So this is a video of part of that vineyard. So you can see that we have this is the beautiful thing about making wine in California, is that the soil types are really unique. So you can see here we've got a lot more vigor. And so this vineyard produces too much canopy and too little crop. So the key thing here is we have to really, really watch this piece and pick it early enough so that we don't get any dehydration. This piece here makes what we call the powerful wine, and this makes the elegant wine. This vineyard here produces too much fruit for the size of the canopy, so we actually have to drop crop here. And the whole idea is to get this thing in balance. And I'm showing this little video because it's pretty funny, because this is the last time I saw my car. This is the Suburban, because Hilary broke it up, smashed it up the next day. So Hilary's madly trying to pay off her insurance. So for those who feel sympathetic for her, please buy a bottle of Hilary, and it'll help pay her bills.
Nick, I think you had some questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
Tara, you had someone who had a question?
Andy, ask away.
Oh, hang on a minute. If there's, I can see him in the chat box, but yeah, go ahead and ask a question.
You need to unmute yourself and then ask the question.
I don't have any questions.
Oh, okay.
I just didn't want you to hear all the loudness of this house. This house is crazy.
Put it on mute.
Now they're open, aren't they? Or they haven't.
Tara, you said someone had a question.
That's all right. I have to mute all you guys again. So
I just unmuted because they asked me. I could tell that they were asking me.
So the beautiful thing is, I'm just going to.
Wait, someone had a question. Can we go back to that, please?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Who had that?
I thought they said they didn't want to ask.
Okay, let's look at your question.
I'm going to show you a little chart here. This shows this is what happens when grapes ripen. Okay, so I'm not going to. If you want to see some of these things, I've got like 50 of them on YouTube, and you can go into it. But this is the one chart that I think is key. So if this is flowering and this is harvest, the acidity increases and decreases. This point in time is what we call veraison. This is when the berries change color, when Chardonnay becomes translucent, Cabernet takes on color. Here we start to get an increase in what we call Brix. Brix is soluble solids, but it's basically sugar. And then we start off here relatively low, and increase we get closer to harvest. This is flavor. And then tannins move from green to dusty to dry to ripe. And where these three things meet in Bordeaux is 100 days. Now you saw me in the vineyard chewing the skin and spitting the pulp out. And what I'm looking for is I'm looking for the flavor and I'm looking for the tannin. I don't really care too much about the sugar. So in Bordeaux, this is 100 days. But they have inclement weather. We have much more consistent weather in California, and that's why I live in California. So if we have a heavy crop, if the tonnage is heavy, the tannins take longer to ripen relative to flavor. If the tonnage is low, flavor takes longer to ripen relative to tannin. But we're really lucky because in the Alexander Valley, well, in Napa Valley, we can hit 135 days. And in the Alexander Valley, we're going to hit 145 days. We have this extra month plus of hang time more than what the Bordeaux producers get. So it's a really unique opportunity. The other thing I didn't really have a chance to explain is when we did that flyover of the vineyard, it's we have to make those wines really differently. So the dense wine I extract very softly because there's so much tannin in that wine. So I ferment colder, I pump it over less, I give less aeration on it. And what I'm trying to do is just make the wine more fruity rather than accentuating the tannin. And then in the elegant vineyard, I extract the bejesus out of it because I know it's going to be more fruity than tannic and it has less tannin volume. So that's why we call this site-specific winemaking. And you know how wines move from purple, red wines, they move from purple color to the red color, to the orange color, to the brown color, especially at total You don't want to be shopping at Total. So when that happens, you're losing wine, because purple and red is fine, but brown and orange is not. You don't want orange brown wine, because what you're getting is you're getting polymerization. The polymeric pigment is falling out, and that's where sometimes you see crusty stuff here. When you see crusty stuff on your bottle, that is not good. Unless it's the year you were married, the year you were born, the year of your first the child, or your divorce, or whatever it is. Great, keep the wine, tell the story, celebrate. But if you start seeing crusty stuff here, this is not only color, it's not acidity, this is color, this is polymeric pigment that's falling out, but it's also taking with it fruit. And this is a fruit product. This is a grape. It's not like making beer or spirits. When you make beer and spirits, guess what? What you did yesterday is exactly the same as what you're going to do tomorrow. There's no story. It's the same product. I made beer for 3 years. I know what it's like. But with wine, this is a living, breathing, evolving substance that we have to celebrate, and we have to check on the quality every day, whether you want to or not. Get out there and do it. Do your job. Anyway.
So Nick, can we
Yes.
allow Randy to ask his question?
Randy, go ahead. Where are you?
Hello.
Oh, you're over there. Randy Rutt. Gotcha.
Yeah, I guess I originally wondered about the Russian River. Where is that exactly?
So Healdsburg is 1 hour. If you get on the Golden Gate Bridge, Randy, I don't know if you've been to the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yes.
But if you're on the Golden Gate Bridge, you drive up 101 for 1 hour with no traffic, which you can do right now. So you drive north on 101 for 1 hour, and you end up in this beautiful oasis, and it's called Healdsburg, and that's where I live. And Healdsburg, to get to Healdsburg on 101, you actually drive through the Russian River. So the southern part of the Russian River is a little town called Sebastopol, which is, if I didn't live in Healdsburg, I would live in Sebastopol. That is a cool, cool town. And it's a lot closer to San Francisco, so it might have been a little bit better living. But anyway, Sebastopol, but Santa Rosa itself, which is our biggest city here with 250,000 people, is also in the Russian River. And as I said, Healdsburg is the junction of 4 appellations. Chalk Hill, Chalk Hill is actually a sub-region of the Russian River, but Chalk Hill, Russian River, Dry Creek, and Alexander Valley all meet in Healdsburg. And we have 280 wineries with a Healdsburg address. So it's a pretty cool little place. Not that you can come to town and visit 280 wineries, but you can come and visit us. But that's where the Russian River is. It's a little bit to the south of us.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Wait, I have a question.
Yeah.
So before all the pandemic or whatever, we were going to have a family trip out to Napa area or whatever. So where do we find you?
Well, good question. So firstly, the best thing to do is to fly. We have an airport here, believe it or not, called Santa Rosa. In fact, most of the winemakers in Napa Valley now fly in and out of Santa Rosa as well. And American and United and Alaska and some country all fly into Santa Rosa. So that's the easiest place to get to. You can fly out of Denver or Salt Lake. You can come right in. In fact, you can fly out of Minnesota at certain times of the year. So you land there. There's great rental cars. You can jump on, and then our tasting room is actually in Dry Creek. But at the end of this, I'm going to put up my address, and you can find me. And actually, if you look at my screen here, you can see nick@goldschmidtvineyards.com. So that's my email address. Please, I'll write it up here. If I can get it all on the screen at one time. I have a really long name.
Take a picture of that. Okay, Goldschmidt Vineyards.
That would be fun to go there.
Yeah.
All right, here's my cell phone number. You can even text me.
Sweet.
Right. You may not want to do that.
No, you buy whatever.
Careful what you ask for.
All right, you got it. You know, the first thing
Thank
about
you.
the Zoom things, we didn't realize these things were backwards. So we actually had to write backwards, and then we realized they were backwards on the screen. But anyway, there you go.
All right,
Okay, thank you.
mute us. Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? Don't be shy. We're having a fun evening, Friday night, drinking some wine. Some crazy Kiwi bastard living in California. What else do you want to know? Susan, you're chomping at the bit. What do you want to know?
Can you tell us a little bit more about Catherine and Hilary? And Catherine used to be semi-reserve Cabernet, and Hilary's Oakville, and how it's a great value, and
Yeah,
what's the birth order, all that.
if we have time, what's the time? We got
Are we
15.
okay time-wise, guys? Tara?
All
Mary?
right, let's jump back on here. So,
Now he's on Catherine.
I'm talking about Catherine now. So I'm gonna have to mute you guys. You guys are killing me. You're a very noisy group. I love it. So yeah, I didn't discuss this, but you'll notice on the label, when Chelsea was 2, I traced her in the head and then she colored it in, and that's where the label comes from. So, and you'll notice that Catherine faces a different direction to Chelsea and Hilary. So Kate is the middle child. I'm not going to ask how many middle children are online with us tonight, but you know what middle children are like, right? Liars, manipulators, bullshit artists, thinks outside the box. And if you ask a middle child, they always say, no, we're the peacekeepers, we're the storytellers. Yeah, you're the ultimate salesman. That's what it's all about. And I went to a class on this, and this is where I learned about birth order, because I'm a firstborn. I had to learn how to do this. This is not a firstborn trait, but firstborns were much more, goal-driven, and we don't like being in public very much, and etc. So this is unusual for firstborns to be like. I had to train to be like this. I had to train myself to be a middle child, and I see it. And on my 5 children, that they all react to birth order. I'm not sure about star signs anymore, but birth order certainly is an important thing. And Hilary is pretty funny because Hilary was supposed to be a boy, and she'll tell you the story. She was going to be called Sean, but she popped out, and I'm like, oh, dude, it's a girl. So we had to quickly think of a boy's name for a girl. So we're from New Zealand, so Hilary is named after Sir Edmund Hillary. Sir Edmund Hillary was the first man to climb Mount Everest, and of course he was a New Zealander. So her nickname is Eddie. Chelsea's nickname is Keg, because her initials are CEG for Keg, Chelsea Ella Goldschmidt. And Kate we call Pippi. That's it's a shellfish in New Zealand, but another long story. But anyway, the birth order is really important, and that's where the labels came from. So yeah, we pick it 3 different ways as we described, and I'm going to talk about how we do that.
G'day, Nick Goldschmidt here. I'm sitting here with 3 glasses of wine, and everything we do is single vineyard, and the way we get complexity out of a single vineyard is by choosing blocks and styles, or working the wines to the way the vines best exemplify themselves. So when I was young, I walked into a room once at a pretty well-known winery with 200 wines on the table. I'm wondering, how am I going to blend 200 wines? I came from New Zealand, I didn't know anything about Cabernet, and so working with a consultant, we figured out the best way to do this is to put them into families. Elegant wines, which are the soft berry fruit wines right up on front of the tongue, the powerful wines which provide the fleshiness and the richness, and the dense wines which give us structure and power. So when we go ahead and line all those wines up, I sorted all the elegant wines together, and I chose the best elegant wines and made a blend. I got the best powerful wines and made a blend, the best dense wines and made a blend, and we had 3 wines, all from the same vineyard, all from maybe in the same block or not the same block, but all from the same vineyard. And then we made a blend of these 3 wines, and it was the most complex wine that we could possibly make. So today I continue that process. With elegant wines, we can extract them a little bit more aggressively because we know that the tannins are in a lower concentration than the fruit, so we can extract more tannin. Whereas on a dense wine, if we made wine like that, they become too dry and too tannic, so we lower the extraction and try and make the wines more fruit forward. So if I was to drink an elegant wine, I'm going to get more red cherry, great structure, very forward in the mouth, Very, very elegant, very ripe, but good acidity, red fruit, and very forward in the mouth. The powerful wine, I can immediately get it. It's more black cherry, a little bit of walnut. And the mouth is really rich, really full, powerful. Not a lot going on in the front of the mouth, not a lot going on in the structural part of the mouth either. And then the dense wines, much more chocolate, a lot more black cherry, but all finished, very supple tannins, good structure, good acidity. And so when we put the three together, hopefully, and it's never 30-30-30, because in a warm vintage, I probably want a little bit more of the dense component, whereas in a cool vintage, I want more of the elegant component. So it really depends on the vintage. And when I put all three together, we get the most complex wine we possibly can from the same vineyard. And that's how we make single vineyard wines really complex.
Anyway, I hope that explained a little bit about what we do. This is the Catherine. Well, I don't know where that blue line came from. Huh, that's interesting. Oh, went away. So people ask me a lot about when do I drink Alexander Valley and when do I drink Napa Valley? And for me, again, it goes back to the discussion about acidity and brightness and fruit. And if you think about Alexander Valley, for me, like if you think, like we talked about with Chardonnay, right? Pineapple down to grassy. If you think about Cabernet, we start, you talk about red fruits, you talk about strawberry, for me is one extreme, strawberries. So strawberry, loganberry, raspberry, red cherry, blueberry, black cherry, and then you get into the plum, black cherry, chocolate, and blackberry, and then black currants. Black currants is one extreme, strawberries is the other. So we've got everything in between. For me, Alexander Valley is more about red cherry, blueberry, and black cherry. So that mid-fruit, nice brightness, good acidity, real good drinkability. I hope you see that with the Katherine, and that's obviously what I'm drinking. Let me check that. Let me check I'm not lying. Love it. Nice and bright and red fruit. So when I drink this wine with food. I drink it when I'm having dinner, and I typically have a Sauvignon Blanc or a Chardonnay before dinner because that's the way I roll, and then have an Alexander Valley Cabernet for dinner. And then at the end of dinner, I'm a cheese freak, man. And that's when I drink the Napa, because the Napa is usually fuller and richer and more black fruit, and it's more of an effort. I'm not denigrating Napa because, of course, we sell a lot of wines from Napa as well, but it's heavier. The tannins are richer and fuller and more black, and so I'd rather drink that at the end of the evening. I find when I go to a restaurant and I look around and people are drinking these big fat Napa cabs, I'm like, dude, what are you thinking? You got to be drinking something that keeps your mouth perked up and alive and interested. And so that's why I think Alexander Valley has a huge advantage over Napa Valley. Anyway, this got 92 points, blah, blah, blah. So where are we in Oakville? So the vineyard we're going to be talking about is this one. So this is Highway 29. I'm talking about Hilary now. So this is Highway 29. This, where am I? This is Nickel and Nickel. That winery there, that's Mondavi. This is Opus. This is Napa Wine Company. They used to be Inglenook, and this is Oakville Cross. So this is 29. You head this direction into San Francisco, this direction up into St. Helena. And Rutherford Cross is here. So Rutherford, Oakville, Yountville to the south. So we do a lot of work on this street. In fact, this is our Game Ranch Vineyard, which is our big seller. It's out towards the Silverado Trail. So that's out in this direction. But the vineyard we're talking about is Hilary. So it's sandwiched between Nickel and Opus. I put this chart up for somebody else the other day, and I thought I'd include it here. So just, it bothers me that when we send wines in for scores, they always put Napa ahead of Alexander Valley. Alexander Valley has never, Katherine has never outscored Hilary. And I have a problem with that, because I think it's all about horses for courses. And I talked about when you would drink it, you would drink Alexander Valley a little bit ahead of the Hilary or the Oakville. But anyway, this is the 2016 that we're talking about. They describe it exactly what I said: dark ruby color, deep and rich with plum. spice, chocolate, lush, you know, blah, blah, blah. That's exactly what, you know, you should get from Napa Valley. Whereas in the Alexander Valley, it's going to be a little bit more spicy, a little bit more smooth. So it's 1 point difference. And I don't know, man. I don't get it. But anyway, just my opinion. Yes, Susan.
But there is the beautiful nickel.
I was just going to say that the prices that you have listed are for California, where they don't pay all that shipping.
Oh, do I have
and
prices
all
on that?
So,
Oh, I'm sorry.
But there is the beautiful.
Yeah, it's
it's
45.
higher in the Midwest and even higher on the East Coast as in terms of price points.
Yeah, in fact, we don't even sell it at 45. That was what was listed in the article. We sell it out here in California for 55, 60 bucks. So
Okay.
even in California, you can't get it for 45. Sorry, I missed it.
Hey, Nick. Nick, it's Tamara. Hi.
Yeah, Tamara.
We have the 2014 Hilary. Is that a big difference?
What? You have the 14? That's awesome. That is,
what our bottle says, right? Should I show you the bottle?
the 14 is that is delicious,
Yeah.
and it's got the old label on it too. That's the last vintage of the old label. So
We should really enjoy it.
oh my God, I
It's
wish I was
really
there with
good.
you. I don't think I have much 14 left. 14
And I
was,
don't think we paid $45.
no, you shouldn't have paid $45 for it. I hope you didn't. I hope you paid a lot more.
Price increase.
Oh yeah, no, there was a price increase between 14 and 15. That's true. But if you think about Oakville, the best value Oakville on the market is Mondavi at 75 bucks. So to find an Oakville on the market for less than 60 is a pretty good deal. So Hilary is the best deal that you can get in from Oakville for sure. But the 2014 is going to have, man, that wine is so silky. It's a little bit richer than the 16. The 16 is a little fresher, a little bit more structure. 14 is a little bit more fleshy. So remember I talked about texture. So 14 is going to be a little bit richer, rounder, and 16 is going to be a little bit longer in the mouth, and then you'll have the texture. So, you know, I've been making wine from this vineyard for over 20 years, so I know how it's going to react. But yeah, the 14 is a crazy good vintage. Get back and buy the rest of it if they're still there.
We just said that. We have to rush back and get the rest
Yeah,
of it.
no, absolutely. Don't tell me where you got it.
Okay, I won't.
All right, I'm just going to show you where the vineyard is. Hang on.
But there is the beautiful Nickel Winery and their vineyard, and that's Hilary down there at that end, and there's Opus, beautiful Opus, out here in the Oakville, getting ready to pick Hilary tomorrow. Cabernet Sauvignon, Oakville, Napa Valley.
So when you think about Nickel at 280 bucks a bottle, and you think about Opus at $350 a bottle, and Mondavi was its, you know, I mentioned the Mondavi Reserve, Mondavi Oakville is at 75. So when Kim Jong-un drops the nuclear bomb in California, and you run to the bunker, and you show up with your bottle of expensive wine from Oakville, which could be, I don't know, Screaming Eagle, Silver Oak, who else is out there? Minor, Scarecrow. If you show up with any of those wines, one bottle or 3 6-packs of Hilary, guess who's going to get let into the bunker? Think about that, especially when you're in sip in place, you know, shelter in place that we have to do in California. I'd be running down to your store right now and buying 3 little 6-packs of your Hilary. Just my free advice, instead of buying your Scarecrow and your Screaming Eagle.
But there is the beautiful.
So this is the wine. It's very old. I didn't run a vineyard video to show you how old it is, but it's super old. In fact, it's on its last legs because it's well over 50 years old, and the yield is well down. This one just got a 93 points, and it certainly is the best value from Oakville. So just a little bit about who we are. Just wrapping up everything we do. Cabernet is our main focus, but we do make a little bit of Chardonnay and Sauvignon Blanc. Everything that we do is vintage, variety, vineyard, and vegan, except for Fidelity, because we don't normally talk about Fidelity, but for you guys, we did. These places are real. These are real people, real stories. So the best way to experience that is to come out and see us. And obviously, I know it sounds crazy, but the best time to come out is September, October, when we are really super busy. That's the best time to come out. You can smell the ferments, you can see all the picking going on, and may not be the best time for salespeople and restaurants to come out because they're super busy. But for you guys as customers, I mean, it's a great time to come out. Our neighbors for Boulder Bank are Cloudy Bay, Martura, and Stoneleigh, as I said. Singing Tree, we've got Goldfield, Kokomo, Papa Pietro, Sonoma, Catre. For Katherine, we've got Jordan, Silver Oak, and Robert Young. As I said, for Hilary, we talked about Opus and Screaming Eagle. And yeah, we'd welcome you come visit. There's my contacts again. And yeah, Susan, go ahead.
So on the 4Bs, where it's 100% vineyard variety, vintage, and the only difference is that the two Fidelities are a blend of different varietals, right? Everything we do is vegan, right?
Correct.
And there isn't a winery per se to visit. There's going to be a tasting room location soon to be announced that the consumers can go to, because we don't have a winery to visit per se.
Yeah, we have. So what we do is we crush in 5 wineries, and the tasting room is actually open as of Monday. So starting Monday, you can come and visit us. But we're going to find out on Monday if we're going to be allowed to open. So yeah.
Can you tell us more about this place?
Yeah, it's on Dry Creek Road. It's called Timberland Farms. There's a group of 6 wineries up there. So Kokomo is there, Papa Pietro is there, Peterson is there, and we're going to have a tasting room right in the center. So this will be the first time that you'll be able to publicly come and taste our wines. So we're looking forward to that. We're excited about the end of shelter in place. So you'll be able to come and visit us.
So if anybody has interest and wants a map and that kind of thing, they can reach out to me, Susan at goldschmidtvineyards.com. Because sometimes Nick's traveling, so this is quite a treat to have you here. Usually you're traveling, so this is unusual. Mary, thanks for stepping up, and for everybody that's coming out tonight to do this. It's pretty fantastic.